The Apple iPhone 4S arrived to a muted fanfare following the loss of Apple co-founder and CEO Steve Jobs, just a day after launch. But despite the harrowing circumstances of its arrival, Apple's latest iPhone appears to be making some serious waves, with reports of record pre-order sales and the improvements Tim Cook wanted to shout about from Cupertino, piquing every Apple fan's interest across the globe. So just how does the new iPhone 4S stack up against both its predecessor and the current range of top-notch smartphones looking to take it on? The key features which Apple highlights as the 4S's greatest improvements are the dual-core A9 processor, a new 8-megapixel camera unit, iOS 5 with iCloud, and the much-talked-about virtual assistant Siri. Physically, the 4S is indistinguishable from its predecessor, measuring the same height, width, and depth, and only gaining a couple of grams in weight. So any iPhone 4 owners with a wealth of corresponding accessories need not worry when upgrading, except for a slight shift in the position of the left-hand side controls, which have had to be moved in order to accommodate the new antenna design. The hardware layout is more akin to the Verizon iPhone 4, with its redesigned antenna tracing the edge of the phone. The top edge, from left to right, holds the 3.5mm standard audio jack, a noise-cancelling secondary microphone, and the power lock key, with the bottom edge housing microphone and speaker grills either side of Apple's standard 30-pin connector. On the left, we have the aforementioned hold switch and volume keys, slightly lower down the side than the original iPhone 4, with the right side devoid of any controls altogether, but housing the microSIM tray halfway down. The front of the 4S is a 3.5-inch IPS display toting an impressive pixel density of 330 ppi, although it is a relatively small display compared to its other dual-core rivals. There's also the earpiece, the brightness and proximity sensor, the front-facing VGA camera, and the all-important hardware home button. To round it all off, in the back, the new 8-megapixel camera sits in the top left next to an LED flash, and beyond that there's the all-important Apple logo, and not a lot else. Of course, the differences are more apparent with the internals of the 4S, and there are some pretty major differences. The new antenna design promises no more death grip woes, and means the phone can switch between the various bandwidths including GSM, 3G and CDMA automatically. The rest of the connectivity is as expected, with some nice improvements. There's GPS, Wi-Fi BGN with hotspot functionality, and interestingly Bluetooth 4.0, which promises lower latency and lower power consumption. The 4S is powered by the same 1GHz dual-core A9 processor found in the iPad 2, with the PowerVR SGX 543 MP2 GPU in tow. Memory is a surprisingly small 512MB, but despite what may sound as an underwhelming amount, the 4S clearly doesn't struggle in real-world use. There are also 3 storage capacities available, 16GB, 32GB, and for the first time on an iPhone, 64GB for those who love to carry their content with them. To round things off, there's a front-facing VGA camera for FaceTime and other video call applications, with the new 8-megapixel camera unit on the back, which uses an all-new custom lens design to get the shots looking as good as they can. The camera uses an f2.4 aperture and films video in 1080p HD at 30 frames a second. It's difficult to talk about the improvements of iOS 5 on the 4S without of course mentioning Siri, the voice command based virtual assistant whose AI is bolstered by server-side computing power, making it one of the more fluid and natural feeling voice-based services to use on a mobile device. Unlike voice control on previous iPhones, Siri is smart enough to allow for variations in speech, phrasing and accents whilst working out the function you want to perform on your 4S. It isn't without issues however, but it's good enough to carry out a range of tasks effectively without having to repeat yourself all too often. The biggest shortcoming with the service being that as it is still technically in beta, things like location search still aren't available outside of the US. Siri can currently understand US English, UK English, Australian English, French and German, but no doubt Apple will expand this feature down the line. The interface and design language used across iOS 5 is consistent and easy to use, with things like improved search functionality, reminders, newsstand, and of course iCloud, which allows you to automatically sync and back up not only messages and media, but basically every aspect of your iPhone, or any iDevice for that matter. Content is stored in the cloud, and you can seamlessly sync content to other iDevices alongside your 4S, without the need for a separate syncing process for each device. It's a big improvement and streamlines content management dramatically. It also means you always have a backup of your iPhone in the cloud, so for whatever reason, you can get your 4S back to a state you are happy with should anything go wrong. If you plan on using iCloud, you get 5GB of free user space included, with up to 55GB available if you take Apple up on a subscription basis. Apple even throw in an @me.com email account should you want it. Imaging has come on leaps and bounds, primarily on the camera side, but the gallery is still as simple and effective to use as ever, with organisation of albums and sharing options a couple of screen taps away, as well as geotagging and similar functionality that'll tie in nicely with software like iPhoto if you're a Mac user. The 8-megapixel camera is really something to shout about, and once the novelty of Siri wears off, by far the iPhone 4S's best feature. The new camera unit itself actually comes courtesy of Sony and consists of a 5-element lens with an f2.4 aperture. Using it, we can see that the 4S's camera has better noise performance and white balance control, as well as producing sharper, crisper images than ever before. There's now face detection, HDR imaging, and an AE/AF lock for manual exposure control too. The party piece of the 4S's camera, however, is the shutter. Apple say that the 4S can take a picture in just 1.1 seconds following a shutter press, and it's safe to say this claim is pretty much spot on. The speed at which the 4S's camera can capture a good quality shot is very impressive, especially when taking multiple shots in quick succession. The hardware must be working hard under the hood, but it means that we get some of the best performance out of a phone camera that we've ever seen. The image samples we took were excellent, being both vibrant and sharp, with good shadows, next to no noise or artifacting, and what's more, using the hardware volume key as a physical shutter button is part of iOS now, so there's no longer a need for third-party solutions. Video too is excellent, with full 1080p HD video coming courtesy of the bump up in hardware performance yet again. The quality of the video is fantastic, even surpassing the likes of the Samsung Galaxy S2 with the silky smooth 30 frames per second, as well as good image stability and image quality, including top-notch colour, detail and contrast. The biggest downfall of the camera is in fact the lack of 720p HD video. It's great to shoot everything in full HD, but sometimes for quick clips, it's a little overkill that takes up more space than you'd really like. This is a good down point to have considering the many things smartphone video cameras can lack, but something that would have been nice to see. In our comparison tests, you can also see the improved quality, specifically over its predecessor, especially with regards to the image stabilization going on in this handheld shot. Safari has undergone a little tweaking too, with some new features and behind the scenes performance improvements that put it at the head of the pack. Using our typical benchmarks of SunSpider and BrowserMark, the 4S destroyed the competition, including the likes of the Samsung Galaxy S2, the LG Optimus 2X, the HTC Sensation, and of course the iPhone 4. The biggest difference is felt in the new inbuilt Safari reader, however. Tapping the reader icon in the URL bar turns any web page into an all writing and relevant images only environment. No ads, no controls, just an easy to understand, clean layout of the content you want, without the distractions of excess web content getting in the way. It also progressively loads pages, so as you get to the bottom of one, it'll load the next, and so on. It really is an elegant feature and a welcome addition to Safari Mobile. As always, there are a host of features we haven't even talked about, such as Wi-Fi syncing, iTunes Match, and so on. Apple have made a lot of small tweaks which add up to a big overall improvement, but it's tricky to let prospective buyers know just how much work has gone into the iPhone 4S beyond the key features that they've already been marketing it with. To really know how good it can be, it's a case of trying it out for yourself. The 4S has done enough to surpass the current competition on a number of fronts. As always, that is assuming you're happy to buy into the Apple ecosystem and their way of doing things. But provided this isn't a big deal, the 4S is a great phone that Apple fans will love and newcomers could definitely be enticed by. For a host more coverage and the full written review, head over to gsmarena.com.